Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Drive Time, where I keep you company on your commute to work or from work, mowing the lawn, beating the kids, whatever you're doing. You can listen to me blather on while you're doing it. Apparently, a number of you enjoy this, so I will indulge you because I am a river to my people. By the way, this is Chuck Dixon, world famous, world renowned, uh, despite what you've heard, very busy comic book writer. Uh, largely known for my work on Batman, The Creation of Bane, my adaptation of J.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, and my seminal work on The Punisher. So anyway, let's get to this week's controversy, and it is a true controversy. I reposted this artwork by my buddy Sergio Cariello, my good friend Sergio. He drew this picture in response to a picture apparently by a current Batman artist. I'm not going to show the picture here because I find it, vile. And it was a picture of Batman, absolute Batman, killing a ICE agent. And Sergio did this, very lovely, funny drawing of Batman subduing a pair of Antifa activists. And uh, everything went crazy. Um, Sergio's post got some attention. Um, Mine, when I reposted it, exploded. And I reposted it on X, and it exploded even more. And within a few days, on X, I had over 5,000 new followers. An increase I've never seen anything like that before. And my repost on X had almost 7 million views. So of course, the shoe flies and creeps and everything else, the outraged, the terminally outraged, the perpetually incensed, uh, came and gathered, on, particularly on X, somewhat on Facebook, particularly on X, to name call, and some of them were working out some sexual fantasies, just generally attacking me. And then what happened from there was, websites picked it up, right wing websites, left wing websites, right wing websites going rah, 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 and left wing websites largely lying about me. one, one website went as far to say that I was afraid of being fired by DC Comics for posting this. And many, many, many of you showed up to inform these different websites and different commentators that I haven't worked for DC Comics in almost 20 years. Um, and then there were lots of other people claiming that, I don't have a career anymore. I'm just doing this to get attention. um, and it's like, no, I reposted it because I thought it was funny. Uh, no, no, I'm not doing it to get attention any more than anybody else on social media is posting to get attention. I find it funny that people who show up and they just, listen to what I have to say about you. They're not looking for attention at all, right? So, and I had lots of people saying that I was a has-been and washed up and old, and I was obscure and irrelevant. Nobody read my comics anymore. Nobody ever heard of me, and everything else. And many of you kind folks wrote in to inform these people and defend me and deny their untruths about me, and that was really nice. I really appreciate it. Sergio did it like a demographics on all this, because Sergio's been fascinated by this. And usually I don't joust with lefties on social media, but I started doing it because Sergio told me he found it so funny. So I'm like, this one's for you, Sergio. I'm gonna answer this guy. I'm gonna chop this guy off at the ankles because I know it'll give you a giggle. Um, but um, so they're just spreading all kinds of nonsense. as they do. And then, but Sergio looked into the demographics on who was posting and everything else, and he found that 80% of the people posting on X were in favor of me. And X is where really the fire was burning on this. You know, nothing against Facebook, but it just seems to be a friendlier crowd there for the most part. And he said 80% of the posts on X were in favor of me, and 20% were against me. And then a large part of that 20%, of course, were people reposting under different names, under different accounts, and bots, and all the rest. And it's quite obvious that the message went out because so many of the posts were repetitive, making the same tired joke or making the same remarks, using the same language. So obviously, this is some kind of AI thing. That's the other thing is a lot of lefties were claiming that this art was AI created. This is Sergio. Sergio's massively talented comic book artist. I mean, it's obvious this isn't AI. It's obvious that a human hand created this. So Sergio doesn't need anybody to help him draw. That's for darn sure. But a lot of the posts said, well, if you're against Antifa, then you're a fascist. Because they explained to me as if I was as big an ignoramus as they were, if I was as big a subliterate and illiterate as they were. They explained to me that Antifa is an anti-fascist organization. They don't like fascists. They go after fascists. So if you don't like what Antifa's doing, shooting at cops, beating up reporters, censoring people, looting and burning businesses, if you don't like that, then you're a fascist. And, and the other thing they would explain is that Batman, he'd be on their side. I'm like, really? Batman would be on the side of mobs of people defying the law, beating up cops, beating up innocent people, destroying public property. Yeah, Batman would be, he's all about that stuff. And then when I would say, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, Absolute Batman would be on their side. Well, I don't know anything about Absolute Batman. Apparently, Absolute Batman is a whole different thing. It's not Bruce Wayne. It's not, it's not Batman. It's Absolute Batman. And will be gone in a couple of years, and everybody, only a small minority of comic geeks will go, remember Absolute Batman? And most people will go, no, I never heard of it. So, okay, so Absolute Batman, apparently there's no rules. He likes crime. He helps criminals. In addition to that, the drumbeat went out, and post after post after post after post insisted that I didn't understand Batman. One post said that whoever hired me to write Batman was an a-hole. Okay, Denny O'Neil, famously liberal, got along great with Denny. I counted Denny as a friend. He counted me as a friend. We had a lot of respect for each other. We didn't agree on anything politically, but who cares? And I never put my politics into comics. So, because you don't do that with Batman. Any political statements that Batman made were from Batman's perspective. Batman went on anti-gun screeds. I wrote really compelling, convincing anti-gun arguments for Batman to make numerous times. And I didn't agree with Batman at all. So that's how you write characters. You don't write characters to go along with your beliefs, which is really silly when you get right down to it. And we're all being silly. Oh, Batman agrees with me. He wouldn't like Antifa. No, you're wrong. Batman would agree with me. Well, Batman's a fictional character. Let's get right down to it. But anyway, I thought it'd be helpful for everyone if we understood exactly what Antifa is, or was, or what it remains to be to this day. Antifa's birth was in the 1920s in Germany. Now, Germany was a mess following World War I, and they were crippled. by the League of Nations. The Depression hit Germany harder than almost any other Western uh, country because of the horrible restrictions placed on their economy by the League of Nations, who didn't want Germany to ever rise up again. Well, that was a big mistake. Uh, that was not taking into account the German character. They weren't going to stay down long like that. So the Weimar Republic is formed to basically give Germany a unifying democracy or republic, and that doesn't go well either. It's got weak leaders. Is any of this sounding familiar? And this leads to various factions fighting amongst each other, and all of them are on the far left. There's no one on the far right because we know what would have happened in the situation on the far right. They would have just moved to a cabin in the woods and ignored it all. Because that's on the far right is Davy Crockett. That's what's all the way out there to the far right, all the way out to the libertarian far right. Far left, you get violent lunatics. So Antifa shows up in this mix in the 1920s in Germany when people are literally fighting in the streets all the time in every city. It becomes a major headache for everybody because these mobs of lefties are battling for supremacy. Which lefty is going to get to run Germany? And Antifa is an organization that was directly funded by Stalin. It was directly funded by the Soviet Union. It was communism under another name. It had this friendly name with this noble cause. We're going to fight fascism. Well, if you know anything about communism and fascism, the only difference between the two is the flag. If you lived under communist rule or fascist rule, there would be no difference in your everyday life. There would be shortages. You would have no money. You would have no security. You would be told what to do all the time. You would not have freedom of speech. You would certainly not have freedom of religion. So anyway, here comes Antifa, and they're going to fight fascism. And they do. They fight Nazis in the street. But what they did in addition, they weren't really about fighting Nazis, okay? Because, I mean, in the 1920s, nobody knew what the Nazis were going to become. Yes, indeed, they did in the street trade blows with Nazis. But their biggest target was the center-left Social Democrats. This really sounds familiar, isn't it? Antifa's main target was the Social Democrats. Now, before you go, Chuck, you saw this on Fox News or you watched the Gavin McInnes video. No, I read this on MSN, Microsoft News, which is no friend to the right, but they had a pretty clear-headed description of the origins of Antifa. So shut up if you're saying that, what I'm saying is just a bunch of right-wing propaganda. All right. So Antifa goes after the center-left Social Democrats in Germany. And they want to bring them down because there's a whole lot more of them than there are Antifa or communists or anarchists or nihilists or Nazis or whatever, other group is out there fighting in the street. And they're all out there fighting in the street. So Antifa goes after the center-left. Push them out of power, replace them, and everything else. I mean, yeah, okay, that's their game. Okay, now they march and say they hate Trump and they hate ICE and they hate this and they hate that, but what they really want is to be in power, and who they're really after are the moderate Democrats. They want to ace them out and replace them, and if they can't replace them, they want them to ally with them for the time being. Trust me, most of the moderate Democrats who are kissing up to Antifa and kissing up to organizations like Black Lives Matter, they will be gone in the end, because they're not really they're not really down with the program the way that the street communists are. So anyway, that is the origin, and many historians say, and Microsoft News agrees, that the rise of Antifa was a major component in what would become the rise of Nazism, what would become the Third Reich in Germany, because they helped take out the moderates. Now, Nazis were after the moderates too. Okay, everybody was, all the far left was after the moderates. And so once they took them down, they could replace them. I would say, unfortunately, but it really wouldn't make any difference who took over. The Nazis won. The Nazis got to take the communists out. They checkmated them, and they took power. They eliminated the center left politicians in Germany. And the Nazis, a lot of people don't know this, but the Nazis also eliminated the more rabid wing, the more extremist wing of their own group, the Night of the Long Knives, where they killed the brown shirts. The brown shirts were the street thugs. This is what Antifa has coming for it someday if the revolution ever comes and they win. They'll be the first ones put up against the wall. This is the way things happen on the left, and it's always the same. From the French Revolution onward, it's always the same. And that's who Antifa is. They are a violent communist organization, and making their logo cuter and and trying to explain that they're the good guys. It ain't going to work, because we see Antifa in our lives today. We see what they are, and they are violent, and they are beginning to carry guns. They're beginning to directly go up against the police. Now, they don't really stand a chance in hell of succeeding in their goals, but they could if our leadership lacked the will to put them down. Thankfully, they have been designated as a terrorist organization, which they absolutely are. They absolutely are terrorists. They operate as terrorists. Many on the left and many on the more liberal leftist cable news channels will tell you, well, Antifa doesn't even exist. No, Antifa does exist, and it's fully funded. Thankfully, since they shut down USAID, it's no longer partly funded by the taxpayers. It's funded by largely billionaires and far left foundations and things like that, to the tune of millions and millions and millions of dollars to keep these things going. And they are very much an organization. It's a classic fifth column organization in that there is no one leader stepping forward. It is cells. That's what terrorists do. They have cells, and but it is very much an organization. I mean, who's bringing the bricks? Who's painting the banners? Who's printing the signs? Who's providing the buses? Who's paying people $25 an hour to show up to their protests? I mean, this is an organization. Absolutely is an organization. And of course, there's no leader, because you could attack the leader. You could bring the leader down and therefore bring down the organization. That's where Black Lives Matter made their mistake. They had leaders, and then the leaders were exposed as corrupt, and the whole thing fell apart because you could identify. But there's nobody you can point to at Antifa and say, that he's the Fuhrer. He's the big boss man. He's the commissar. He's the guy, and we got to look into him. No, it's not going to happen. They are a parasitic organization. They are like fleas. They're like a planter's wart. You got to get all of it out. And the thing is that once you get enough of them out, and we've seen this before in history, once you get a certain percentage of them put in jail for serious on serious charges for real federal penitentiary time, once enough of them that happens, enough, the rest will melt away. They'll because for a lot of the people following Antifa, this is a hobby or a fad or whatever, and they will maybe not grow up, but they'll find some other pursuit that's not going to get them thrown into a prison cell somewhere. Um, so that's Antifa. Yesterday, today, and hopefully not tomorrow. Now back to Sergio, and how this all blew up. It's as I pointed out, and Sergio's pointed out, a number of people have pointed out. This is in reaction to, I can't even remember the artist's name. Um, and he's a current Batman artist, and he drew a picture of basically absolute Batman, obviously breaking the neck of an ICE agent. And Sergio's response is Batman pretty gently subduing a pair of it. He didn't want to. He didn't want to have Batman killing Antifa members because Batman doesn't do that. So Batman is pretty gently taking these punks down. Probably taking them to custody, hand them over to the cops. If you watched any video, like particularly from Chicago or Texas, you'll see Batman's treating these kids a lot more gently than the cops do. There's been some brutal takedowns. You go ooh, you just see somebody slammed to the asphalt, and six ICE agents or six cops land on their back. Not to say the cops are being brutal. If you really pay attention, cops are doing a lot with sprays. They're doing a lot with paintball, um, you know, uh, pepper spray, bullets. And I noticed the Chicago cops, they switched from truncheons to wooden dowels, like you would buy a wooden dowel at Home Depot. If you've ever been hit by a truncheon and hit by a wooden dowel, you'll know there's a big difference. Wooden dowel basically just kind of discourages you. It's like a tap on the shoulder. Stop doing that. Getting hit with a truncheon, yeah, you're talking about serious bruising, broken bones, and the rest. So the cops are being remarkably patient with these people, as Batman is being in this picture. Sergio took great pains to show that Batman is in no way harming these guys. He's just doing what Batman does. So, you know, I don't know. It's I'm not worried about this country because we will course correct, but it's just frustrating, and I feel bad for Sergio. I mean, if you've ever met Sergio, he's just the nicest, sweetest guy you'd ever want to meet. But he's a tough guy too. He's a tough guy too. He used to be in the Brazilian army and stuff like that. But he's just a really nice guy, and very devout Christian. And there's nobody that doesn't like Sergio. But even he had it when he saw basically Batman being maligned. It wasn't even really I don't think the political thing. It was just that you were going to use Batman, turn Batman into a murderer to support your political cause. You were going to, and for people to go, oh, mostly peaceful, nonviolent. I mean, come on. What nonviolent organization promotes an image like that? What nonviolent organization brings guillotines to their protest rallies? What nonviolent organization parades around with guns and supports violent criminals? They want violent criminals freed, put back on the streets. Um, so, I mean, Sergio was, reacting to, um, a character that we all grew up with, who is a heroic character, uh, for him being used in this way. And I doubt very much that artist will lose his job. He'll continue drawing Batman, and he'll probably make a fortune selling prints of that, Batman murdering an ICE agent. Uh, so, it is what it is. But I wanted to, sort of come here and talk to you, my good friends, my my merry few, my band of brothers here and sisters, I'm sure, and basically let you know, from my perspective, what was going on here. If you're watching any of this kerfuffle on Facebook or on X. But at this point, I'm getting tired of jousting with these people and sparring with them, because it's kind of like arguing with a not particularly bright child. It's getting tedious, so I'm blocking a lot of these people who have recently found me. That's the other aspect. Sergio pointed this out as well. Somebody will show up and I'm a big fan of your work and I'm so disappointed. And then you go check their profile and there's nothing about comics there. Nothing. And in many of these accounts, you go check their profile and they've never posted an original post. They've only reposted far left propaganda. So you're like, okay, this isn't even a real person. So you got to deal with that. And trust me, with AI, let's face it, AI is taken over. AI is supreme already. We just don't know it yet. The robots haven't shown up to your door yet. They're working on it. So much of the response to this was AI. There's somebody somewhere that can push a button and all of a sudden 1,000 posts show up in support of whatever, lunatic fringe idea they're supporting this week. So there you go. There you go. That's enough of the politics and the dreary nonsense. I'll talk about something more cheery, and I will be doing more Ask Chuck Dixon's. It's just it takes a while to put the videos together. But I have gathered a bunch of your questions, and we'll be doing this again. And they're great questions. I can't wait to get to answering them. But I got to carve out some time, because this ain't my full-time job. I'm not looking for relevancy here. I'm not looking. This isn't monetized. I just like talking to you folks who've been here from the beginning and seem to dig this. And that's it. Conversation between friends. One-way conversation. You're just listening to me. Well, maybe you're shouting at me. Chuck, shut up. But anyway, that's it. I've run out of things to say. I will see all of you down the road.